Okay, what we're going to do in this piece of the puzzle is we're going to start from the basics here, and we're going to show you how we install the Mt4 platform. This is just one way of doing it, but if you're starting out for the first time, you may want to follow exactly how it's done here so you get everything set up right, because it'll probably work the first time for you then, and you won't have any problems. But what we're going to do is install the Mt4 platform, and we are going to be installing a demo account from FinFX. So to get started, the first thing we want to do is you never want to install it into the folder that it defaults to, which is the program files folder. You always want to do is create another folder to put it into. And as you can see here, I already have one FinFX folder here, and I have subnamed it with a 2 here so I can separate it, but I'm going to put another one now because we're starting over from scratch here and doing this. So what we want to do is create a new folder, and I'm going to call this one FinFX 1, because as you can see I don't have that one in here yet. There, so now I have 2 of them. Now I will be replacing the Mt4 software into this FinFX number 1 folder. That's where I'm going to be putting it. So when we come to that part of the installation, you'll have to pick this folder. So for now, we'll just get this out of the way. What you want to do is go to your broker and download the demo account. Now remember, for any of this stuff to work properly, if you're going to use the basket writer or any of these other programs here, you need all 28 pairs. So make sure your broker has the necessary 28 pairs that we use. Okay, this is the first thing you will get when you try to download the software. Just click yes. And then click next again. And then you have to agree to the terms here if you want to read it. Go ahead. And now this is where you have to pick that folder that we just created to install this into. So what you want to do is go to Browse and go to the C drive. Open up your C drive. That's where I put it. And there you can see this is the folder that we created. That's where I'm going to be installing it. So just highlight that one, click OK. And you can also uncheck the Open the MQL5 community website. We don't need to do that. Otherwise, if you leave that checked, that website will pop up when you're done with the install. It's up to you, but I usually uncheck it. And we also leave the create a desktop shortcut because we want a shortcut on the desktop, and it will launch the program after we install. Now remember, it creates a desktop shortcut. Now if you look up here on my desktop, I already have a shortcut, but I have renamed it to the number 2 because this one here points to that number 2 folder. Remember, the number 2 folder. Now when this creates a new desktop icon, it will not have this number after it. So what you want to do then is edit that. We'll show you that here in a minute, because otherwise if you create more than one demo account with the same shortcut, it will, as you know, copy it over the top of the other shortcut, so you will lose your first shortcut. Okay, so now we just click next, and you just click yes to this, and it will go and start downloading the files. Now I suggest maybe the first time you try this that you do the FinFX demo, because we know that works. Now you can see we got the new icon up here. Now when we get done here, I'll rename this icon. I'll put the parentheses 1 by it, so it tells me that it corresponds to that demo account I got in that file folder. So now all you got to do is click the finish, And it may take a few minutes, but then you will get the screen will appear. And then you just click the next button again. And you want to create a new demo account, because we supposedly at this point you shouldn't have a regular account yet. So we'll be clicking the next button. And after that, it'll come up with a information screen. That you'll have to fill out. And for now, you just leave the leverage alone, and you do have to click this box where you agree to subscribe to their newsletter in order to get it to go any farther. Then you just click the next button, and then you click finish on the next screen where it comes up with your password and all that. Just click finish, and then you should end up with a screen that looks like this here. Now for now, I'm just going to get rid of a bunch of these because I don't want them on there. Just to clean it up a little bit. Okay, so that completes the installation of the Mt4 platform. In the next section, we'll be talking about how to get it set up properly so it will work with our programs that we will be running. Okay, in this part we're going to be talking about getting the Mt4 platform set up properly. Remember in the previous part we talked about installing it. It has been installed. Now we want to get it set up properly so it will work with our software. And as you can see, here is the desktop icon it created. Now remember, I'm going to rename this. I'm going to put a 1 after it so it matches. Now it matches up with that folder. Remember, we had created those two folders. We got a FinFX1 and a FinFX2. This one here will point to that new folder we created. This other one is a previous demo version which points to the second folder. So that way we know where they all are. If you're only going to do one demo account, of course you don't need to create more than one. I'm just going to rearrange these here. So okay, so now what we want to do is open up the software, and as you notice it comes up basically the same way we left it before. Now what you want to do, this is the first of all, I'm just going to rearrange these, drag these around so it gives me a little bit more chart space and gets them in the place I want. Depends on your screen resolution and how many of these you can get across the top. Okay, what we have open here presently, it comes up with the Market Watch window. What you want to do is right click it and click on Show All. So you make sure you can see all your symbols. And if you want to, you can expand this just a little bit so they don't get cut off. Okay, so we got all that. Now what we want to do is we want to go up to the Tools, open up the Options, and go over to the Experts. And we want to allow automated trading. You can turn off these two. And you also have to click on Allow DLL Imports for this to work. So that sets up your expert advisors for usage. Click OK. And as you notice, this was red up here before this auto trading. Now it is green, so you can use expert advisors. If this is red, you will not be able to use expert advisors. But by clicking on this, you can turn it off. So it changes it to red. That means your expert advisors will not work. Okay, now what you can do is go up to File and open your data folder. And you should get a folder that looks something like this here. Now what you want to do is go up here and close your Mt4 platform, leave this folder open, close your Mt4 platform, because this is where we're going to be putting our files that we're going to download from the forum. Now what you want to do is, if you haven't done it already, is go back to the Forex forum, to the thread, and download this zip file, getting started zip file. So once you have that, what we can do is just click on extract all. I'm running Windows 7 here, so this may vary a little bit depending on what version of Windows you're running. Extract all, and I'm just going to extract it to the desktop. And there we have that folder. Now in here you will find the different indicators, experts, and scripts and all that you want, that we will be replacing into this data folder. So let's do we can do the templates first. There's 2 of them. Just copy both of these and put them into your templates folder up here. Then we have scripts. There's 1 script we'll be using. Copy that. And you'll find that under the MQL. Paste that into the scripts folder. Indicators. These are all the indicators that you'd probably need to run most of the programs that are on the forum. So copy all these and paste them into your indicators folder. And here we have the experts. Copy all these and put them into the experts folder. Okay, so we have all them in there. Now the reason for shutting down the Mt4 platform before we copy these into here is because if you don't, you just copy these in here, and if you don't shut down the Mt4 platform, you will not see any of these when you open up the Mt4 platform again. They will not show up until you stop the Mt4 platform and restart it, because then it reloads these files. So now we can go back up, click on your shortcut, and we'll open up the Mt4 platform. And we can close down this Market Watch window. This is where all your pairs are if you want to look at all your pairs. Going to close that down, and we'll open up. Now if you look under indicators, you should find those indicators that we just put in there. Here they are, the IXO 1 and 2, the Hanky Ash, and the basket creator up here. They're all in there. As you can see, they're all there. Now one thing we got to do here first is the EA uses a shortcut for the basket create. So what we want to do is set a hotkey, because it uses this hotkey to launch it. And the hotkey is alternate G. That's what launches the basket create indicator. And the EA, the basket writer, also uses this hotkey to launch it. If you don't set up the hotkey when you try to write or create a basket, it will not launch this program, so it will not work. So be sure you set up this hotkey. Then just click on close. And as you can see, also the experts have been placed in here. Here's the basket writer. And here's our BT14 version 25 EA, which we use. The basket writer Version 4 is the latest one. The Basket Writer version 3 is the previous one before that. They're both into this zip file that's in the forum, so you can use whichever one you want. But we will be going through the version 4 when we start into that. And also the BT14 is the latest version of the EA that gets placed onto the offline charts you will create with the Basket Writer. Now remember, we also placed a script in here, and that is the force load historical data script. Now you want to run this in order to update all your data in the files for each pair that's in your watch list. Otherwise, if you don't, you will not have any history, and the EAs may not function properly, especially when you're looking for a strength of different pairs and different currencies. It will not work. Like I said before, you must have all 28 pairs that this calls for in order to work. That's why I suggested the first time when you do this, download the FinFX demo, because we know they're all there. Later on, you can pick and choose your own source to download your demo from, whichever broker you want. But for now, let's do it this way. That way we get it up and running and we know it works. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to run the force load historical data to bring this up to date. Now how you do that is, first thing you want to do is open up your experts tab. That way we know what's going on. It'll show us. And we'll scroll back down here. All you got to do is highlight it, grab it with your mouse, drag it over onto the chart, release it, and you'll see there it says it's been loaded. Now this may take 5 to 10 minutes depending on your network speed and your broker to finish. But as this continues on, it will go through every pair that's in your watch list and download the data. There we got the first one. The Aussie Canadian dollar has been downloaded. As you can see, it shows you all the time frames. Here's the 1 minute, 5 minute, 15, 30, 60, 240 daily, weekly, and monthly time frames. And it tells you how many candles have been downloaded for each one of those time frames. As you can see, we've only done 2 so far, so this is going to take a while. Like I say, it would take 5 to 10 minutes depending on your network speed. But when you get done, you should have all your pairs should be here, and they should have all been updated. So that means our history will be good. We won't have to worry about any history being missed for these. So for now, I'm going to we'll stop this recording, and I'll come back in 5 or 10 minutes when this is finished, and I'll show you what it looks like then. Okay, we're finally finished. It took about 15 minutes. But as you notice here, it says failed none. So we had a real good download. None of them failed. Now I'm doing this during the week when the market is open, so there's not having trouble with the broker. Weekends, you may have some problems if you try this. You may get a lot of errors, failed. Now if I had got something here that says failed, all I would have to do is drag this back onto the chart again and release it, and you'll notice it goes through all of them again and checks them. So you can do this as many times as you want, trying to get your download complete. But like we had here, we had real good turnaround. We didn't have any failures, so we're good to go. So we got all our data is updated. All of our history for all our charts is up to date now. So we're all set to go. And we got all our EAs in place, and we have our indicators in place. So in the next video, the next part 3, we will be talking about opening up the Basket Writer and creating a basket of several different pairs. That'll be in part 3. Okay, in this part we're going to be talking about the Basket Writer. These are just going to be some fairly short videos. Try to keep them short, not real in-depth. We'll get more in-depth later on as we do more and more of these, but this time we're going to This will be a quick run through of the new Basket Writer version 4. First thing I want to do is launch our Mt4 platform, and that opens up. And now a lot of times what I do is put my Basket Writer net over onto the gold chart. So you may want to open up this chart window of the XAU USD. And for now, what I can do is get rid of this other one here because I won't be using it. So we have that opened up. And I'll just leave it on the 1 hour time frame. Okay, now what I want to do is open up one of the Okay, so what we want to do is do a template here. Remember, we got two of them in there. One was the black one was the plain one. Which we want to use for this one, I'm going to use the black template. So we click on the black template, and you notice it gets rid of all of our chart information. You can also do that by going to properties. And as you can see, if you open up the properties, we got everything set to none, except the foreground color we got is white and the background is black. You can do this all manually if you want to, but it's just quicker to use that black template. It's just basically to give you a blank screen. As you can see, the price is still moving up and down over here. The chart's still there, we just can't see it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to launch the Basket Writer version 4. So just highlight and drag it over onto the chart, and it'll come on up with a bunch of stuff. Now this here should all be correctly filled in already. You shouldn't have to do anything here because remember, under the tools previously in the setup, under tools options, we had set all this stuff up for the EA. So you shouldn't have to change anything here. It should be all like it is. If it isn't, then make sure the proper ones are clicked like we got here. Inputs, not much to the input. We're going to be using a basket create link. You want to leave that at true. And the basket we're going to be creating will be called test in this case. If you want to call it something else, that's fine. Don't make it too long though. You got to keep the name of the entire basket under 9 characters. We'll get into that later on, but so this is part of the 9 characters. The Basket Writer will actually add a couple characters to this, so possibly 4 more. So we got 4 here, so that's already 8. So in this case, you could only have possibly 2 more characters here. Because remember, we want to keep that name under 9. So for now, we'll just leave everything default. And remember, this is our hotkey, we set up. So remember to create that hotkey for the basket create. That's just reminding you of that. Click OK. And I'll show you that hotkey again. Remember, this is the Basket Create version 3, 670 ET. And remember, we created a hotkey for that. Alt-G. You must have that created in order for this to work properly. Okay, so we got that up and running. So now what we're going to do, I'm just going to close this to give us a little bit more space here. Just change this back to the trade window, which we won't be doing any trading on this particular pair. Now this is how the version 4 looks. Now these are always going to display the weekly currency strength. This one will always display the daily, and this one the H4, the H1, and the M30. These will always display the currency strengths for those particular time frames. These will update every 5 minutes. So they only update every 5 minutes. Now down here we have time frame selections. The weekly, the daily, the 4 hour, the 1 hour, and the M30. Now that refers to the time frames of all these other windows here. Across the top, your core splits and your crosses down here. That refers to what time frame you're looking at presently on those. And presently we were looking at the 1 hour. You want to look at the M30 and notice how they all updated. Now you notice these charts did update. They didn't change the time frame. You're still looking at the time frame, but they just did an update because, like I said, they only update every 5 minutes. But when I change between periods down here, these will also be refreshed at the same time. So basically right now we're on the M30, so this is giving you all the different currencies, all the pair strengths for the M30. Now we're going to go back to the 1 hour here. And you notice now these all refer to the 1 hour. Now if you look at like the euro dollar here, it says minus 153. And if you go up here and look at the euro dollar, you got a minus 62 and a plus 92, which is 154, which corresponds to this number. It'll always be off by 1 digit, but that corresponds to this number. So what this is telling you is the dollar is strong and the euro is weak. That's why they're selling the euro dollar, because the euro is the weak. And remember, when you're looking at pairs, the one on the left is always called the base pair, and that's the base currency is the one on the left. The one on the right, the currency on the right, is always called the quote. That's the quote currency. And if you look at the 1 hour chart, you can see the dollar is strong, fairly strong, and the Canadian dollar is fairly strong, which kind of corresponds to up here if you were going to buy them. So you could buy the dollar Swissy. You just see the Swiss is a minus $57.92. Remember, we're set at the 1 hour here, so that's why I'm looking at the 1 hour chart here. And this number always is the difference between the two different currencies you're looking at. So you can go down and look down through these charts, like the weekly here, the dollar was strong, then it got a little weaker on the daily, a little bit weaker on the 4 hour. Now you notice on the 1 hour it's gotten a little bit stronger again, and a little bit stronger again on the M30, so maybe it's getting stronger. That's something you'll have to determine. But now what we got here, these are all basically your 28 pairs. And it shows you which ones are strong and which ones, these are in a buy mode. The bigger the number, the stronger it is in the buy mode. And the bigger the number down here in the minus direction, the stronger it is in a weaker direction, in the sell direction, I mean. Now just remember, that doesn't mean that you should be necessarily selling these or buying these at the top, because they could be at a turning point. You don't know. You would have to look at the chart and see if you think it's at a turning point or not. And now here are your core 7 pairs, and it gives you an idea what the split is at presently on those. You got 3 green ones and you got 4 red ones. And here's your Aussie. These are your 7 pairs in each one of these blocks. Here are your Aussie. All of these contain the Aussie, whether it's the base pair or the quote pair. These all have the Aussie in them. Same way here, you got the Canadian, here you got the franc, here you got the euro, and this one is showing the euro as being all red right now. So look down here and you notice the euro is the weakest of all the different currencies, so that's why you got a lot of red ones here. Here's the pound, here's the New Zealand dollar, then you got the US dollar. Then we also got a group over here of 7. These are all just the yen pairs. So if you want to look at just the yen pairs, these are the yen pairs up here. Now usually when I look through these, I usually look for a number at least 80, either plus 80 or minus 80, greater than that. So in this here case, I would only be looking at the first 2 because they're above 80, And in this case down here, I'd only be looking at the bottom two because they're less than a -80. Same way here, I wouldn't even be looking at any of these because I don't consider them strong. They're not 80. You can pick a number whatever you want. Like I say, I'm just using 80 as a reference. Here we got 2 that are above 80, and we got 2 that are below 80. Here we got 2. Here we don't have any. Here we got 2 that are lower than 80. Here we got 2 that are lower. Nothing over here. Here we got 2 and 2. And in the yen pair, you got 2 and none going short. So it depends on what you want to pick. But like I say, I use 80, and I like to keep baskets. If you're going to build a basket, try to keep it, I don't know, like 3-4 pair at least. Doesn't get 2 pair doesn't mean much because the more pairs you got, the smoother the basket is. Otherwise, you're closer you get to 1 pair, you're right back to just trading a single pair and with all the noise, where the more pairs in the basket, the smoother it gets. But I like to stay in the 3, 4, 5 pair range, somewhere in there. Now this window down here, all this tells you is just information for you. If you want to look at it, you don't have to look at it. Just ignore it. You can ignore all this if you want to. Don't matter. This one here, this first column, tells you what the present spread is on that particular pair. All your pairs are listed here. This is your average daily range, what the average daily range of that pair is. The next column is what the present range for the day has been so far. And as you can see, we're late into the day here, almost getting close to the start of a new day, and they're all red. What that means is we have already went past 66% of the daily range. At 33% or less, it will be green. At 66% or less, between 66% and 33%, it will be yellow. And once you get above 66%, it will change to red. And as you notice, the Euro Swiss down here, Frank, I wouldn't even bother to even trade that because it's got such a low average daily range that it's kind of a waste of time. And here we got the previous day's high and low. This tells you what the high and what the low was for the previous day on that pair. And over here, this next 2 columns tells you what the current day high and low have been on that pair. If it's red, that means it's less than the previous day. In this case, we're looking at the high for the day, so the high today is less than what the high for yesterday was. And in this case, we're looking at the low, and since it's green, that means the low is higher than what the low was yesterday. So that would kind of tell you you're kind of inside the high and the low from yesterday. Over here we have a percentage of increase or decrease since the open. In this case, the Aussie Canadian dollar has gone down 1.0717% since it opened the day. That's what that is telling you. This is how much it has been. The green ones mean that it has gone up. Presently, the present price is up that much since the open. And as you can see, the strongest one is actually the dollar yen. It's gone up 1.7391% since it opened, and also the high and the low are above yesterday's high and low. So apparently he's on the move. And if you look over here at the trend, this just gives you a basic snapshot of what the trend is on the weekly, daily, 4 hour, 1 hour, and 30. And as you notice, he's showing some strength going up. He has been in the trend on all those time periods, apparently going up. Now this buy or sell column, all this is kind of like an overbought or oversold. When it's green, what it's meaning you, what's that telling you is maybe you want to look at buying it. Like now we're looking at the 1 hour time frame is what we're interested in, and we got a red dot on the pound franc. So what that means is you may want to be looking at a sell because it's red. That's telling you may want to look at a sell because it may be overbought. And if it's overbought, it may be want to do a turnaround. Who knows? You won't know until you look at the chart. But it just gives you a rough idea at a glance. Now you don't have to use any of this if you don't want to. So it's entirely up to you. Okay, now the next step we're going to do here is we're actually going to create a basket. And what I'm going to do is create, looking over here, we'll just create a basket using these first four since they're all greater than 80. And as you can see, the first two are the dollar compared to the franc and the yen. And if you look down here, the dollar is strong on the 1 hour. And the franc and the yen are weak. So, same way with the Canadian dollar. You look down here in the 1 hour, you can notice it's almost as strong as the US dollar. So we'll just create a basket with those four. Like I said, I like to create baskets with at least 3 or 4 or more. In this case, we got 4 of them above 80, so we'll use those 4. Now, just because they're green, that doesn't mean we're creating a buy basket here. I usually create a basket and then I let the EA decide which way it wants to go, because we may be, it may be in an overbought area. Maybe it's due for a reversal. That won't be something you'll know until you look at the chart. So we're going to create a basket. We're going to use the dollar franc, which is down here. You just click the button once, it'll turn blue. Dollar yen, Canadian franc and yen. Now if you double click these, sometimes you may end up getting more than one in a basket, so you want to make sure you check your basket list, which we'll show you here in just a minute. So we have 4 of those selected, and that's the basket we're going to make, and it's going to be a 1 hour basket. So all you got to do is write the basket, and you'll notice the basket creator pops up. Remember, that was that hotkey we set up. If you don't set up that hotkey, this will not pop up. And we go to inputs. This is going to be a 1 hour. We're going to build a 1 hour chart, offline basket chart. And now here's the name we're going to be using for it, because remember, in that name we picked at the beginning when we launched the EA, the basket writer, it was called test. So that's what it's using, and when it does, it appends the number to it, which corresponds to the number of pairs that are going to be in the basket. Now you always want to check those pairs, like I said, to make sure they match up with what you selected over here, just in case you double clicked one too many times. You don't want 2 of them in there. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to change this name to test 4. Test 4. Change this one to test 4 also, because it's going to create 2 files, and these are the names of those files. You notice this one has the pound signs at the beginning and at the end. The reason for that is it puts it at the top of the list in the offline charts. I'll show you in a minute. Just makes it easier to find. If you don't put them before and after, then you got to search down through the file list until you come to something close to around where the T's are, if there are any T's, and that's where you'd find it. Now this one doesn't have them. This is just a different list because it creates 2 different lists. So anyway, once we do that, just remember this one always has to match this one here, and whatever you got between the pound signs has to match over here. So now we're going to click OK. And as I said before, remember you can only have 9 characters here. Right now we got, 4, 5, 7. So the most we could have in here is 9. So you could only have 2 more characters. That includes the pound sign. So don't make this any larger than 9. If it's bigger than 9, change it. Okay, we click OK. Now what that does, if we look at this chart and we look at the indicators, you notice there's an indicator on this chart here. That's in the background. We don't see it because we got it all blacked out, but there is an indicator on there. The basket writer put that indicator on there. That's the one we just, remember, created. The basket writer put that on there. That's the one that will create the offline chart. Now, important thing to remember, you have to leave that indicator on this chart. You have to leave this chart open. Otherwise, your offline chart will not be updated. So be sure you leave this open and you leave that indicator on it and running. We don't have to leave this EA on here, but we should leave the indicator on here and leave this chart open. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click clear. That clears all my tabs and it erases my list here. So now I could create another offline chart if I wanted to, but I don't want to. But if you do create another one, what you can do, stop the robot. You always have to stop the robot when you change its properties over here in the experts. Otherwise it's going to crash on you. Now if I was going to create another one, maybe I don't like the name test. Maybe I want to call it, maybe I'm going to create a dollar basket, so I could call it USD, something like that. Be sure you change this name. Otherwise, when you create another one, it will come up with test. And if it happens to have 4 pair in it, it's just going to write over the top of those other files. And you don't want to do that. Now, if we go up here to File and open Offline Charts, you notice there's our offline chart. That's the one we just created. Test 4, remember, it's got 4 pair in it and it's at 1 hour. That's the one we just created. So now we're going to open him up and there he is. Now one thing you may want to do, sometimes that chart gets a little screwy when you've created it the first time. It doesn't look right. So I always go back to the main, where I got the indicator list, where I got the indicator for the basket creator on. Open it up and just click OK. That'll make sure that indicator is running properly and this chart is correct. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my plain template on here. And yeah, okay, just hit refresh. That puts my plain template on there. This will be the template I'll be using when I put my EA on here for tracking this. Now remember, this was telling us that these was a strong. All of them were strong. And as you can see, it corresponds to what we see here. But we will get into that when we put the EA on here to trade this. We will more or less let the EA decide what to do with it. Right now, the EA may be telling us it's strong and it may be waiting for a little bit of a reversal or what. It just depends on the logic we use when we decide to trade this. That'll be in our next part. That'll be in our part 4, how to put the EA on here and possibly look for a trade. So for now, that covers it for the Basket Writer version 4. And you notice the robot is still stopped. If you wanted to restart the robot to make sure he is running and everything gets updated, just click OK. And you notice he'll start running again. Now, if you're not going to use the robot on here, if you're all done writing your baskets, it's best either to stop him so he doesn't use your CPU, or stop him and remove him. Go over here to the Experts tab and remove him. I'll leave him on here for now. And we'll let him run. Turn him back on. And like I say, all of this stuff here gets updated every 5 minutes. This stuff here gets updated probably every half a second or so. You can see these numbers changing over here. This is real-time updates here. And we have created the one offline chart. And remember, you have to leave this indicator running. Do not delete him or remove him from this chart, or do not close this. Like I said, you can remove the EA from here, but do not close this chart you got him running on. Okay, that about does it until part 4. Okay, in this part we're going to add the basket basket trader EA to the offline chart. As you notice, I still have the robot running on our main chart here, and we also have the indicator is still running on here. Now, if you ever find that your offline chart is not being updated, it looks like it may be locked up, and this is during the live trading or during the week, not on a weekend, and it's not going to update on a weekend. But if it doesn't seem to be updating, just come back over here, open up the basket create indicator, and click OK, and it should refresh it and it should kick it off again. So remember that if you find out this indicator is not moving, you're not getting any price changes over here, go back and open the indicator and just click OK, and then he should start updating again. Now these numbers over here, this is just numbers. They do not really correspond to any prices. And when it creates the basket, it always tries to start out around 300. So that's kind of a common starting point. So no matter how many pairs you have in here, this number when you first create it will always be around 300. And like I said, these numbers do not correspond to any prices. They are not used for that. Do not use them. Okay, so what we're going to do this time is we're going to add the basket trader EA to the chart. And the way you do that is open up your expert advisors here. And it's called the BT14 version 25 670 ET. That's the one we'll be adding. So just drag him over onto our offline chart. And you can check your comments. These should all be checked like this. Like I said, when we did the tools options up there, we set this up, so this should be all correct to start off. And then we go to our inputs, and we'll open this up here a little bit. And it comes up with a basic with this magic number. Now you can put any number you want in here. You want to put some number in here to use as your magic number, because that's how the EA keeps track of the trades it is taking. So be sure you put some number in there, and don't use the same one for all your offline charts, or the EA will start closing and opening trades on other charts. And your lot size, most of this is left at all defaults. Now in this particular case, in this demo, all we're going to do is use entries 0. Now you may want to look back through some of the other videos to get more ideas of what all these are used for and how they're used. I'm not going to get into a lot of depth on these because I just want to basically get the EA onto the chart to get you started. But I'm going to use entry 0, so we'll set that to true. And since I'm using entry 0, I need to tell it what entry 0 settings to use here. All I'm basically going to use is the cross of the hash for an entry. And the rest I'll just leave them the way they are. 1 trade per candle. That keeps it from accidentally getting caught in some sort of loop. If something goes wrong, it will only take 1 trade each candle. So in this case, it will only take one trade for each hour. It's just a safety precaution. And if you only want it to take just one trade, do one basket, of course, you turn this to true, and then when that basket closes, it will stop. But like I say, look in through the other videos and you'll find the video that will explain all these. Indicator link, you should always leave that to true because that will put the indicator settings automatically into the EA. You will not have to use any of this stuff down here to input it. If you set this to false, then you're going to have to tell it what to use for settings. But if you let this set to true, it will just copy the settings from the indicator that's on the chart. Exits, I'm not going to be using any exit because I just want it to get me into the trade, and once into the trade, then I'll decide what I want to do from there. So like I said, look through the videos. There's one there on setting all these up. I don't want to go into all these right now. The only other important thing you want to watch down here is your pair suffix. If you have a pair suffix, what that means is if you look at your pair, if there's like an I after it or a little AC or something like that, you have to put that in here. Otherwise, the EA will not recognize that pair. It'll come up and say it can't find that pair. Now these down here, you don't have to worry about in this particular demo here, because with this link turned on, we'll automatically link up and get the correct pairs. But be sure you check and make sure you got if you got a pair suffix, be sure you put it in here, otherwise it won't work. And like I said, look through the videos and you'll find on how to set up all these other settings. Now buttons left, in this version I have changed this to false. Originally it was set to true because in previous versions of the Mt4 they had problems with the Mt4 platform, where with buttons and that they had a tendency to be incorrect when placed on the right side of the chart up here. But since that has been corrected, we don't have to set this to true anymore. We can leave this at false. That way it puts all our buttons on the right side up here. Okay, so I'm going to turn this, start him up. And here's one of the warnings you're going to get if you misset the lot size. Now FinFX on this particular demo account, the minimum lot size is 0.1. Now we'll have to go back and change that, because see, I got it set for 0.01. Now whenever you want to change any settings in the robot, you always have to stop him. Make sure you stop him. It has to say robot is stopped. Otherwise, if you try to make a settings change back here in the expert provider properties, you try to make a change back here, and without stopping the robot, he will crash when you try to start him up. And here is our lot size. Remember I says we got it at 0.01, and the minimum for FinFX on this demo account is 0.1. So we got the warning, so I'm just going to change this to a 0.1, and we should be good to go now. Click OK. See, the robot starts back up. You can see the little dashes going back and forth here. It means he's running. And as you notice, our lot size is now changed to 0.1, and we did not get the warning. And also, remember, these are the 4 pair that we had selected to trade. And it is showing us similar to what it showed us back on our other chart, where it was telling us they were fairly strong, right? They were green. It was telling us the same thing over here. Now I'm going to move this. If you grab this little diamond up here, you can move this over just a little bit. But you notice maybe we're into a little bit of a sideways motion here. Looks like it could be forming a little bit of a pennant. We just had a flagpole here. Maybe this is a pennant. And we could be in a little bit of a holding period here. And if you look to the left over here, you will notice we are at some resistance. It's been here. We had resistance. Over here we had some support. Now if we shrink this up a little bit, you can get back and look and see what the past. You always want to look at your past history to see what's been going on. So we could be just expand it out again. You can do that by hitting the plus or minus sign on the keyboard, or you can go up here and hit the plus and minus up here, the same thing. So we could be kind of a little bit of a hold here at this resistance level. Maybe we're going to pop through, maybe we aren't, we don't know. Now there's a couple of different ways you can run this. Remember, I set it up for entry 0 to has cross. So for now, let's just put a has on there. And these should be all good. Remember, we set the properties. Okay, now I'm going to change this. This is the default. So I'm just going to change it to a 3 here and a 3 here. And we'll put it on the chart. Okay, for now I'm going to... Now, if you go to the forum, you'll notice all kinds of different setups. Some are using the IXOs 1 and 2. Some are using Oz. So some aren't using anything, just a blank chart. This is one way to set this up. As you can see, if we were waiting for the has to cross, this is going to have to retreat a little bit and give us some pullback. So this has will turn red again, and then when it, if we were looking for a long here, it depends on what you want to look for here. So as you can see, we've got a cross here. If we had this running before, we would have got in down here at the open of this candle, and you would have been up 481 pips right now. A lot of times what I like to do is just put lines on use the line charts. Use that. Just use the bars, or sometimes you can even switch to the line just to get an idea of what's going on. So it just depends on what you want to use. Now in this case, since we're at resistance here, you may want to use the breakout lines. Now you notice when you do this, your other indicators go away here because it's not using the has now. We are not using it. What we're using now is the breakout lines. And like I said, you may want to go back and look through the other information to find out how to do this. So maybe I want to wait and see, is it going to break? You know, maybe I want to, let's play it for a long. So what we'll do is you can put this here, and we'll use it in this case as a breakout, which means the candle has to close above this line to give us a trade. Now if you look back through the information, you also have what we call a PO, pending order line. Now if I were to use that, what that means is whenever the price touches that line, it will automatically take a trade in that direction. But I'm going to use the breakout. So I'm going to set it. This is entirely up to you where you set this. We'll set it there, just say there. And I'm not interested in a short right now, because let's just play this as a long. So what we can do is delete this line. We don't need it anymore. You notice our other two boxes go away because you can't use those when you only got one line. So now all we're looking for is a long trade. So we can even go up here and turn off the short trade if we want to. Remember, that turns the robot off. So now the robot will not take a short trade. He will only take a long trade. And it only if the candle closes above this line. So basically, we are set to go. Now you can always add take profit and stop loss lines if you want to. If you want to add a stop loss, then you double click it, and we can say, let's put a stop loss right about, put it right there. So if the price comes down, hits a stop loss, it will take us out of a trade. If we get into a trade, this would be our stop loss. And we can even hit the trailing stop loss on. Now you notice it says hidden trailing stop loss. Now as the price goes up, this will start to follow. And if we think we know where a take profit is going to be, see the green line there, maybe you think it's only going to go, maybe you just want to go up to there. That would give you, of course you don't know where it's going to close. See, it's got to close above this line, so we'll just measure from the line for now, but that's 242 pips between that line and your take profit. And that would be kind of a hands-off trade there. So now all you got to do is go up and click the Start Live Trading button, and you're good to go with a live trade. Whenever this trade closes above that line, it will take a long trade. It will not take any short trades. All we're looking for is the long trade. One other thing I guess I didn't mention back when you were setting up the demo account, it will ask you there how much you want to put in it. In this case, it always defaults to $5,000, but you may want to put a little bit more than that in there. It just depends on, because if you do get some losers or something, then you're going to have to open up another account or add to it or something to use it. So if you start out with a larger amount, the demo account will last longer if you start getting a bunch of losses, which you're always going to have losses. You're never going to know what's going to happen. Okay, so one other thing, if you ever want to change the properties, this is just like the basket writer. You can't change any of these with the robot running. So like now, I can look at them if I want to, but I can't change them, because if I did and then hit OK, it would crash the robot. So be sure you always stop the robot. And like in this case, if I wanted to change something, right now I just hit cancel because I'm not changing anything. If I wanted to cancel something, what I can do is turn this off, trading live, and then hit the stop. But just remember, when you hit and stop the robot and you make changes, all of these lines that I just put on there are going to be gone, and you're going to have to re-put them back on again. They will not stay there because you opened up the properties and you said you were going to make some changes, and you did. So the robot says now we're back to ground zero. You have to do your lines again, or do your setup however you wanted it. And remember, we said to use entry 0, but since we decided up here with the button to use the breakout, entry 0 is no longer in effect. As you see, it's gone. It is not listed here. Same way here. You see these buttons go long, go short. Use robot for open, use robot for close. That corresponds to these buttons up here. And I have turned off the robot. So he cannot take a short trade. He can only take a long trade. That's all I'm interested in, is to see if he takes a long trade. The long button, the short button, the add, and the close, remember, look through the other video. Those are all manual. So I can actually turn off the long button if I want to. Don't let the robot even take a trade and just sit and watch this. And if I decide it's going to go, I can hit the long button, or I could hit the short button and it will take a trade. And remember, the add button, if you click the add button, it will add to the trades that are open. But it will only add to the trades that are in positive territory that are open. So if I got 4 trades open here and only 2 of them show a positive profit or loss, only 2 of them will be added to. It will not add to a losing trade. One other thing over here, let's see where it's at. Screen capture. I usually like to have that set to true. You can turn it on or off. What that does, it will take a screenshot of this screen when this trade opens up. If it takes a trade, it will take a screenshot of it when it opens. And if you have an exit set on here, something where the robot is going to exit the trade, it will also take a screenshot when the robot exits the trade. That way you can look at that screenshot. If you don't, like if you come back and look a day or two later at something and you say, why did it take that trade? It doesn't look right. You can go back and look at that screenshot and it will show you exactly what the robot saw at the time it was taking the trade. Now those are all kept under, remember, the data folder. They're all under the MQL4 and they're always in the files menu. This is the same place those files are put, that the file that the basket writer and the basket creator use are put. And you'll notice there's two of them. And if you were to open it, just text files, you'll notice there's our 4 pair. That's used for by the basket creator. The basket creator indicator uses this file. This other file, basically the same thing, except it's got a different name. That's the one that is used by the EA to load these pairs into the EA. This name matches the name down here. And that's what the EA looks for. Remember, there's that link in there. That's why I say keep that link turned on. Go back to the properties. And here is that enable basket pair link. I usually that's set to true. That way the EA loads these 4 pair in here that you have made for this chart. You don't have to do it. Okay, here's the other link here. This one here, enable indicator link. I usually use that, have it set to true. What that does is, you can't see them right now, but remember when we were going to trade the Haas, you had a Haas setting up here and it told you what the setting was of the Haas. That's what this does here. What it does, it connects back to the indicator, the Haas indicator, or the IXO1 or IXO2, whichever 3 of those you are using, and it will look and see what the settings are, and it will automatically put them into the EA. You don't have to do it. It saves you from typing all this in here. If you were to turn this off, then you're going to have to put them in here, because this would be what the EA uses for settings. But in our case, we got to set to true, so it will automatically use what the indicator is set at. One other setting is this one down here. These will all be over in that video that's on the talks about the basket trader, but I just thought I'd bring it up. Is the currency type. All that changes is when you get into a trade, when it shows the profit or loss down here, the symbol that gets put in front of the currency down there. So if you don't want the dollar symbol, put your own currency symbol there, and it will place it in front of the profit and loss of the basket as it goes on. So just remember, now don't click OK if you're just looking at these, otherwise you're going to crash this thing. And then you're going to have to start all over from scratch. So we just hit cancel. And now we're basically, remember, start live trading. Trading live. And basically what we're doing now, we're looking for a candle to close above this line. When it does, we're going into a long trade. It will enter 4 trades on these 4 pair in the long direction. It'll buy all 4 of them. And even in our case, since we're not even using the hash here, we could just even delete it off in here. But we're not using it, so why even have it on the chart? You can delete that off, and if you rather use the line chart, you can turn that on. A lot of times this is handier to turn the line chart on. It gives you a better idea where you can draw your support and resistance lines. You notice here, it's pretty obvious right in here we got some resistance, and that's where we're sitting right now. We're bending over here, so we're at some resistance. Or if you like candles, you can always turn the candles back on. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. So I think that about covers it on this for now. Part 4 of this should help you get up and going quicker. Like I say, go back and look at all the other videos, because they all have a little piece that will help you get started.